This time we have a Sansui 7070 receiver. This was from 1976, belongs to a buddy of mine. It was his dad's. His dad passed away about 2013, and this unit has not been powered up since. So it's been sitting a long time. We're going to power this thing up and do any work that it needs to have done to it. I have here a Sansui 7070, and I know the manual says 60, 60, 50, 50. That's because the guy that brought it to me, it's a friend of mine. It was his late father's, and he thought it was a 50-50, but it's actually a 70-70, so a little more power. Manual's going to be close enough. This thing has not been powered up since at least 2013. It's been sitting. So, and it's probably been sitting a lot longer than that. So we're going to power this thing up today. We're going to power it up slowly on a variac and on a dim bulb, because the last thing you want to do is cold start caps that have been sitting around for a long time. Cabinet needs a bit of work. This is a vinyl veneer cabinet, believe it or not. This was not a real wood veneer on this. It was actually a vinyl veneer, so that should be relatively easy for him to restore. All he needs to do is get a sheet of vinyl veneer and peel the old stuff off and stick the new stuff over top. Anyway, before I power it up, we're going to remove the top from this one, and then we're going to power it up and see what it does. We know that this unit is not a virgin as far as being serviced go, because one of the washers on one of the screws is missing. So somebody's had the screws out on this before and has lost one of the washers. 4 screws out and the top cover lifts off just like that. First thing we notice on this is that the wires that support the light bulb for the tuning dial, originally they were glued down on top, and the glue has failed. This cage just holds the circuit boards in place for the left and right drivers, and the output transistors are across the back. It's got a generous power supply in it. This unit here, I'm going to guess, is I think about 70 to 75 watts per channel. So one of the reasons we're going to power this thing up slow is because big electrolytic capacitors like this that have been sitting dormant for a while tend to not like to be slammed with a full operational voltage. So we're going to power it up, and I'm going to bring the variac. I also have it on a dim bulb tester, so if something were to short or something was shorted, I would see a bright glow from my dim bulb tester. But we're going to start by gradually bringing the power up, starting at 0 volts, and I'm watching my dim bulb tester to see if I see anything glowing on it, which I don't see any light whatsoever. I'm starting to see the panel lights starting to glow, which is good. That means we have power. We have nothing that's overloading. I'm going to continue to bring the voltage up slowly. We're sitting at around 50 odd volts right now going into the dim bulb tester. I can confirm that with my AC meter. Yeah, right now we are supplying it with about 67 volts. So a little over half of its rated voltage. I'm going to let it sit here just for a few minutes at reduced voltage, just to allow the capacitors to start to charge up slowly, and then we'll gradually bring this up to 120 volts. And at that point, make sure that everything is working. It's always a good idea when you are, I say, powering up something that's unknown, to use a dim bulb. A dim bulb, what is what, you may ask, because maybe you haven't viewed my video on my dim bulb tester before, but I will show it to you. You can barely see it in there, but it's just an incandescent light bulb which is in series with the AC power line. So what happens is the current must go through the dim bulb tester before it gets to the unit under test. It's a 100 watt incandescent bulb, and what that means is that it will limit the current to what can flow through an incandescent bulb. If I were to put a dead short, for example, 100% of the current will go through the bulb. At 120 volts, you would have, if you follow Ohm's law, but if you go through Ohm's law, 100 watts at 100 volts would be 1 amp. But it's 120 volts. So 100 watt bulb. Anyone? What? 0.83 amps? Okay, we've been cooking for the last 10 or 15 minutes at 67 volts. We'll gradually increase the voltage up to 120. And let's hear the relay kick in. Now remember, we're still going through the dim bulb tester. The dim bulb is very dimly glowing, so we're not drawing any serious current. So the advantage, of course, to running through the dim bulb is that we'll limit the current to less than 1 amp. A 100 watt bulb would be about 0.8 amps is all that a 100 watt incandescent light bulb will pass. So if there was a catastrophic short, our current would be limited to about 0.83 amps. Our voltage, obviously, to the amplifier is going to be low because it's going in series with what is, in effect, a resistor. As you can see, our dim bulb is just barely glowing, so there's no problem with short circuits or anything. Nothing is drawing excessive current. We'll turn on our speakers. The A speakers are on, and I want to see whether it's going to be able to tune anything. So I'm going to select FM. It is in FM mode. And we'll see if we get any sound. Turn the muting off. So we got a lot of noise on the low end of this, on the low end of the tuner. What we can do to clear that up is we'll spray some compressed air into the tuning capacitor just to blow any dust out. So I'll turn off the power. I'm going to get my air compressor, and we're going to blow some compressed air in here just to blow out any dust that could be shorting out the plates. We don't want to put any type of cleaner or anything on this because obviously that will short out the capacitor. So just like a air duster, or if you've got an air compressor. I have a compressor, I've got an air dryer on it to remove the moisture, because normal air compressors, when they compress the air, if there's a lot of moisture in the air, you'll get moisture in that compressed air. So I have a dryer on mine to remove excess moisture, so what comes out of mine is relatively clean air. It's certainly not a pure gas air dryer, but it's the next best thing. And basically what it is there's a desiccant pack that the air is blown through and stored in, and it removes, like there's a desiccant in the storage tank that removes any moisture in the air. So I'm just going to direct the air into the tuning capacitor to blow any dust out. So as I turn on the power switch, that's the capacitor's charging up, but we're not drawing any excessive current, so it drops back down to a very low draw, as the unit isn't drawing much current because we're not producing any volume. Now if I start to produce a lot of sound, it'll obviously go up. There's currently no antenna on this unit. We know the unit's not going to blow up, so I can now plug it into full power, as the caps have had plenty of time to equalize and to reform themselves. So let's power the unit up at 120 volts. Again, no antennas on it yet. I can hook a wire up to it, give myself a little bit better reception. There we go. Now we have a little bit of an antenna. I've just got it tuned into my test transmitter right now. and low filter switches do need to be cleaned for sure. You can hear the tape play monitor switch. Now the left channel just kicked in big time. We're going to check the, there's also one of the lights under the meter here. There's one light, looks like it's out. Should be two lights on each meter. This one looks like there's one bulb out there. Actually, the display is not out. The display is evenly lit. It just looked like at one angle that I was looking at, it looked like a little darker on one side, but that's not the case. The lights are all working. Just one bulb on the meter looks like it might be out. But let's just check the accuracy of the tuning dial. So this is 690 AM. Looks to be right on 690. 730.
Check it out, the Jazz Drill Hall Show on 980 C. Technical.
980.
Set up your online network and
1040.
Oh, he missed it.
1130 should be right here, which it is.
City.
1410.
No one to care about the semifinal match.
So the AM is good, but the FM is not calibrated right, because like 99.3 should be down here, and it's actually coming up around 99.5. 101.1 should be right here, but it's actually a little bit high. Little bit, not much. 103.5 is sounding a little bit high too. .9 is coming up at like 97.1, and where's our 88?
3 doses as the series. After and get the booster dose.
Chief Medical Officer Dr. says others who will qualify for the 4th shot.
So this is our trimmer right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just select different stations across the dial and try to get them close as possible to alignment. So like 99.3 for example is coming up much higher than it should be. It should be right about here on the dial, so I'm going to just tune this. To center 99.3. And now, see how the other ones look. There's 101.1, right where it's supposed to be. 103.5. 104.1 or 104.1, 104.7. It's 105.7. 104.9, 104.3.
Rob Zimmerman, thank you.
Gloria, the number of people in BC hospitals
88.1
with COVID-19.
Okay, so here's our FM dial, 88.1, 87.5, and where's the next one? 92.9. Should be right in about here. I don't have much for an antenna. I'm just kind of hanging onto the wire here. 94.9, right where it's supposed to be. 95.3 should be right here. It is. 96.1. 96.9 should be right here. And it is. 99.3 should be right there. And there it is. 101.1. 101.1. 102.7. 103.5 is next. It'll be 104. I think it's 104.3. 104.7 should be right about here. And 105.7 should be right about there, which it is. So the dial is now calibrated for FM. Now I just got to remove my little tweaker, make sure it doesn't go out of tune when I do that, which it didn't. So we're going to clean this switch. As you can see, this switch is, there we go, see? The source switch is one channel cutting out, so we'll clean the switch. We'll do all the switches on this one. And I think that this unit itself does not need a heck of a lot of other work done on it. I don't know if the guy that owns it wants to go about changing a bunch of caps on it. It sounds fantastic just as it is. All the other lights are working. The photo light, the FM, the AM, or the Dolby FM, AM and auxiliary. The tape selector switch is actually located right down there where I'm shining the flashlight. If you notice when I don't know if you can see the shaft through there or not, but it's right down here behind this. So that's where I got to get my cleaner, is right down there. It's a rotary switch right down there. You can see the switch in there now. See the contacts turning? That's the tape monitor switch. So we'll also give the main input switch a shot of cleaner down here. I'm going to give the low and high filter and muting buttons here a shot of cleaner. Give those ones a shot of cleaner too. I should be able to get to these ones through here. There, that should fix them up. I say the only thing I can really see that this needs, and I don't think the guy that owns it is going to bother with this on it now, is one of the bulbs on the right side meter. There's 2 meters. There's 2 bulbs, one on either side, and the one on the left side is out. But to take that apart to change that bulb, you can see it here, right? 2 bulbs here, one's out over here. You don't really notice it other than the meter is not quite as bright on one side. It's certainly still very readable. It's just that you don't see it. If you look down from the top, you see that the bulb is out. And to change that requires dismantle of the entire front of the unit to get the meters out and then take the bulbs out from the back. There are these type of bulbs here that have got the leads on that are soldered in. Be probably a 12-volt bulb. I don't have any of them at the moment, so I'm not going to bother with that. I will resecure this over here so that the wire isn't going to get caught in anything when the tuning dial is being going from one extreme to the other. So now I've got it playing directly from my MP3 player. Remove the driver board shield so we can check the bias, the idle current. For the output transistors, make sure that everything's still within spec. So there's a couple of adjustments we need to make on this. We need to do the DC bias offset and the bias current and the offset. So how we do the offset on this one, and I got the manual right in front of me here, the service manual, or a page out of the service manual, is we're going to connect our meter across the speaker terminals, and we're going to adjust VR1 and VR2, which are on the driver board here. VR1 here and VR2. These are the DC offset to balance the outputs so that we don't have any DC voltage going through the speakers, because that would be a very bad experience for your speakers to have a DC voltage. I'll put the meter on the B speaker terminals in DC mode and leave the amplifier run for about 4 minutes before doing this adjustment with the volume turned to minimum. And the amp's been warming up for a few minutes. You can see we've got 0.051 volts on the speaker terminals, which we want to try to make that 0 if possible. So we just adjust the bias, or the balance I should say, to see if we can get that number down closer to 0. And we're going up the other way now, so we'll come back a bit the other way. That is probably as close as I'm going to get it to 0. And we want to be plus or minus within 10 millivolts. So yeah, we are like 3 millivolts. So that side is good. Let's do the other channel. And all this side's good. This side is already good. That control there. Either that or my meter's not making a good connection. Let's make sure that my meter is actually. Oh yeah, there we go. My meter, I guess, wasn't making a good connection. This is actually very close to being in spec. See if we can get that closer. So we're 20 millivolts right now, and we'd want to be within 10. We're at 19, so see if I can get that one just a little bit closer. Okay, we are now within that 10 millivolts. So our balance is good. Now we're going to do the bias. I figured I'd pull the driver board out. We'll just measure a couple of the capacitors on here to see how they look. Because, you know, this thing is old as the hills. So let's just measure some of these capacitors. These ones on the driver board will obviously have a direct impact on the sound if they are in any state of failure. So let's take a look at what we've got. Meter zeroed out. We have a 470 microfarad and a 100 microfarad over here. 470 at 63 volts should measure 0.09. See how close this is to 0.09. We're 0.16, so we're starting to creep up ever so slightly. And what about the other side? 0.15. They're pretty balanced. The 100 microfarad cap is 25 volt. It should be about 0.32 is what would be considered to be a new cap. 0.16. So we're actually below what the value is on a new cap. Same with on this one here. How's this one look? 0.23. We're still well within spec. And the 330 at 63 volts, I don't have one for 330, but I do have one for 470. So it should be between about a 0.16 and a 0.09. And we are at 0.03. So these capacitors here on this board here are nothing wrong with them. And I wouldn't change them because the fact that the ESR is right within spec is a good indication that they are not in a failure state. They aren't drying up yet. I could also measure the capacity of them using the capacitor meter, and we can just see how these are measuring up capacity wise. So if I put my fluke meter on. $543 for a 470 is not in too bad a state. It's going up a little bit. This is a 100. Right on, right 100 microfarad. Same with this one over here. This is another 100 on this side. Now remember, most of these caps can be as much as 20% out on the positive side. So here's the 470 as well. It should measure probably in the 500-ish range, somewhere in there. 520, 530. That's what I would expect it to go to. There you go. So that's measuring right where I would expect it. This is a 330. And I would expect this one's probably going to be closer to 400. Okay, that one's measuring way up, but there are other components in parallel with it. So it's measuring capacity of the other circuits. I would imagine this other one's also probably going to measure really, really high just because of other components in the circuit. And it is, because this is one of the main filters for power coming in, and it's measuring the capacity of the entire circuit. So I wouldn't put anything into that. The ESR is the one that really matters. So no problem with the driver board here. If we look at this driver board, we can actually see the component that was replaced on this thing when it was repaired. That resistor has been changed. Certainly see the solder work on that. Actually, that one might be original. This one's been changed. That one's been changed on this channel. And that one's been changed on this channel. You can see these are different. That's an original there. That's been changed, and that's been changed. And looking at this cap here, this one here, if I was going to change one just from looking at it, I'd probably change that one there. In fact, I might just change these four just for the hell of it, since I've got it apart. And on the power supply board, there's one cap down here that should probably be done. It looks like it's been getting warm, and the shrink wrap on it is shrinking down. So probably look at changing that one, and maybe these ones here. Oh, I didn't look at these ones here, but these little ones are probably okay, but we'll measure them anyway. Actually, I screwed up. They're not 63 volts. These ones are 6.3. I misread. It looked like 63 volts from when I glanced at it, but if we get a close-up view, we will see that those ones are actually 6.3. So they're 470 at 6.3. That makes a big difference. 470 at 6.3 should be approximately 0.24 for a new capacitor, and it's 0.16. And the same with this other one here, 0.15. So I think we're okay. I think what the ones I would like to change is, if I'm going to change any, I would do these ones here, just because this one here looks like it's starting to fail. Just from looking at the, if you look at the edge here of the wrapping, it looks like it's starting to go bad. And we'll just take a look at these other little ones. These are 0.47 caps. These are little coupling caps in here. We'll change out those ones. I'll change out these two. And I'll change out these two here, because this one here is starting to look like it's going bad, and then there's that other one that is obviously going bad. We'll get those ones changed out and just see how this one sounds. I don't anticipate it's going to make much difference in the sound, but these ones are definitely in the audio path. So we'll get them changed out. And this one, other back here, this one's a regulator. This is a regulator board, so we're going to change out that one there, because that one's obviously reaching the end of its useful life. There's one. And the other one is over here. And these two little orange ones down here, I'm going to swap them out as well. Oh, these are solid. These are not electrolytic. These are, looks like these are tantalum. Yeah, okay, I'm not going to change these ones. These are a solid type cap. If we look, you see? So we're going to put that one back. That's a solid cap. It does not need to be changed. Because typically they don't fail, and when they do fail, well, they fail catastrophically. But this is in the audio circuit, so it's not like it's going to be getting much, if anything, in the way of voltage to it. Plug the board back in. And plug the audio input back into it. I'm also going to pull this power supply board out right here, and we're going to go over that one, as this one here obviously has a cap that's certainly showing its age. That one right there is definitely, I think, got to be done. If we look at it ESR wise, it does not measure bad. But the fact that the jacket has been shrinking on it indicates that this one's been warm. So we'll change this one out just because there's physical signs on this one that it certainly has led a hard life, let's just say. So let's just pop this one out. We'll pop a new one in. Sitting right over top of that heat sink doesn't help either. That's why it's hot. All the heat from that regulator is going right into that cap. 50 volt at 100 microfarads. Negative is here. This is going to be on the negative regulator. So I got a new device today sent to me by my carrier, my cellular carrier. It's time for a new phone. Not that I need a new phone, it's just that I want to take advantage of being able to get one that has an SD card slot on it, because the SD card slots are going the way of the Betamax, so to speak. And the new phones don't have them. And for me, an SD card slot is an absolute must. I will not have a phone without one. So even though I don't need a new phone, I just had to spend a bunch of money to get one today, because unfortunately I don't get the deals that everybody else gets. I have to buy my phone outright, but I'm rewarded in a cheap cellular plan, so I don't have to pay the big bucks for a plan. But I got my new phone, and I opened up the box, and it's not made in China. I was quite surprised. I was fully expecting to see made in China, but it's not. It's made in Vietnam. So it's made next door. So Samsung's making their phones in Vietnam now. At least the one that I got, an S20, S20 FE, is made in Vietnam. I was quite surprised to see that, because I was fully expecting to see made in China on it, like everything else seems to be made. We'll check the SR on these other caps, and I think they're probably also going to measure okay, and but we'll test them and just see. I won't necessarily just replace them on spec, because I did this one because of the look of it. It looks like it's ready to blow apart. But here's the other ones here. 0.2. This is a 100 microfarad at 16 volts. So 100 at 16 volts. 0.7 is considered to be a good reading, and I'm measuring 0.2. You see my little chart there, 0.7, right? And I'm measuring 0.2. So we're good. And this is the one I just changed. How about this one over here? How does this one look? 0.06. You know, we're good. 0.6. What is this one? That's a 10 microfarad at 50. So 10 microfarad at 50. 2.4, between 3.2 and 2.4, and we're down at 0.6 and 0.6 for the other one. So I think we're good. We don't need to start running around and changing a bunch of caps in here just for the sake of changing them. So I'm going to leave it at that. Okay, new caps in. Let's power this thing up. And we'll go back to speaker A. Measure the bias current, so I'm going to connect my voltmeter positive down here to test point 05, and for the right channel it's number 7, which is this one here. I'm just going to pull the jumper out and connect the other side. My meter is in current mode, so we're measuring milliamps this time. So current across here. My meter is in milliamps. I'll turn on the power. I'm going to let it stabilize here for a minute. So we're going to let this thing stabilize, and we want to set our bias current to, we need to set our bias current to 30 milliamps. We're sitting at about 45 now. I got to let this thing just stabilize for a few minutes, let it warm up, and then we're going to adjust the bias current to bring this down to 30 milliamps, and we'll do the same for the other channel, which is next to it. So basically what we're doing now is we're applying our power is going through the meter. So by unplugging that jumper down here, I've disconnected the right channel from the power supply. Power is now going through the meter. We're measuring milliamps. And obviously if I were to give any volume, this would increase our, because we're going to draw power. So this is done with the volume turned off. So I'm going to let this thing warm up for a couple minutes, just for everything to stabilize, and then we'll adjust the bias current. Okay, did I say right channel? I meant left channel. Left channel is test point number 7, which is what I'm on. Test point 6 is for the right channel. So to adjust the bias current, it's VR03. We're going to adjust this down to 30 milliamps, which is this one right here. Oops. Go down to 30, please. Okay, or close enough. 30.6 milliamps of bias. That's probably as close as I'm going to get it. This is our idle, right? Our idle current that keeps the transistors from going into cutoff. And actually, it's okay to be a little bit hot. You can actually improve the sound a little bit by keeping your transistors from going into cutoff. So 31 milliamps is totally acceptable. You don't want it to be too hot though, but you also don't want it to be too low. If it's too low, the amp can go into what's called a class B mode, and you want to try and keep this as close as possible to give you a class AB. So that's about as close as I'm going to get that. Let's do the same for the other channel. Power it down and let the voltage drop off. Okay, we'll do the same. We'll power it up. And this one's sitting at, again, about 50 milliamps. And I'll shut the camera off for a minute. I'll let this thing set for the next 5 minutes to get fully stabilized again. Okay, we're back. Now we can adjust this one over here. We want to bring this down to around 30. Close enough. Disconnect the meter. Okay, time to put this unit back together. And gotta get the boards to line up with these slots in the top cover. Anyway, I left my camera running when I went down to the store to get a case for my phone, which they didn't have. I got myself a new phone, a spare. I don't need it yet because my existing phone is still running, but when I heard that Samsung has finally dropped the SD card slot from their phone like everybody else, well, that's a condition of me having their phone. Let's say it's a line in the sand that I won't cross. It has to have an SD card slot. And I know some people are just fine without having one. Some people probably even say good riddance to it. Not me though. I don't like the slow backup times to plug it in the computer. More importantly, though, the biggest reason is when you've got a micro SD slot on your phone, you're out in the field shooting pictures, shooting video, whatever. You're on holidays, you're shooting video, and you run out of memory. What are you going to do? If you've got a phone that has an micro SD slot, you can pop out the SD card, pop another one in, and just keep on shooting. You can go on your vacation and take a pocket full of SD cards and you can shoot forever. And take the card out, and then when you get back to your computer, you can download it all right off the card. If you've got a phone with built-in memory, no matter how much memory it's got, it's going to fill up at some point, and you're going to have to sit there and download it to your computer. And if you don't have your computer with you, you're kind of screwed. That, and the other reason is because, say your phone breaks, and you haven't backed up your contents, and your phone breaks and now it won't boot. You've now lost everything that's on your phone. SD card slot, you just unplug it and you're off to the races. Unplug it, pop it in your card reader, and you're off to the races. So it's a condition of me buying a phone. If it doesn't have an SD card, I'm not buying it. Since they've stopped making phones with SD card slots, I figured I better get one while I can, and I did. I got a Samsung S20 Fan Edition FE, or Fook everyone if you want it that way, say that way, because that's basically what they're doing. They're fooking everyone that goes for their new phone that doesn't have the SD card slot. Think of it that way. Anyway, I went down to try and get a case for it, and of course, no cases, no screen protectors. Doesn't matter. I'm not going to be using it for a while. I'm still using this one. This is my S10 that I've had, or S9 that I've had for 4 years, I think. Still going strong. Does everything I need it to do. And I won't be using the new one until this one dies. And it could be a while, because I'm not hard on phones. Except for my work phone. I got an S10 for work, one of the new ones, and I had it one day, and I managed to break the back because somebody thinks it's a great idea to make the backs of phones out of glass. And it was in my pocket before I got a case, and it got squeezed between my leg and the latch for my car door, getting out of the car, the phone, the back shattered on a brand new phone. I had not even had it one full day. I was issued it when my old phone broke, and on my way to the cell phone store to buy a case for it, I broke the back. I'm going to put this one together. I'll then hook up a turntable and a couple of other speakers. The guy that owns this is a friend of mine, and he's looking for a pair of speakers, so I told him I had a small pair of small Pioneers, so I'm going to hook them up to this, and we'll see how it plays, and we'll see how it sounds, and how the turntable works on it. But I think this one is pretty much done from a basic restoration. Change out a couple bad caps, bias and balance the amp, and calibrate the FM dial. These small speakers. Time to hear some vinyl. Okay, that about does it for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.